Hello, Suns fans, and welcome back. It's the end of the season, so I'm not really sure where we're going to go from here. My name is Shane. I'm your host of the GCSUNScast, the only Gold Coast Suns fan show by fans, for fans. Now, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Thom. Welcome to the show, Thom.
Yeah, g'day, Shane. It's a bit of a disappointing circumstance to be meeting up, but I do have to say lots to talk about and discuss. So, we've got another 44 minutes to do that.
Yeah, the last, I'd say 7 or 5 days has been a bit of a roller coaster from not just in the football sense, but also in our personal lives. A lot of stuff's been going on. Unfortunately, Thom, you're struggling with a bit of work at the moment, so you're exploring your options at the moment.
Yeah, I do have some work got cancelled for this week, so that's that's never good. I do have some work to be going on with. I think the government will take care of a few people in my situation, but the people I feel sorry for are people who've got to get up every day, going out and doing things like stacking bloody shelves at Woolies. I'd love to have that job and get that pay each week, but at the same time, having a kid and family, I don't, you'd have to self-isolate. You wouldn't be able to see anybody. So, yeah, this is no good for anyone. There are people who are really going to struggle. Could go on for hours. Homeless people, what the F are they going to do? Yeah, well, it's no good. And I know you yourself, you've had a bit of a downturn as well in work.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough to be self-employed with my own franchise in the transport industry, but it's being self-employed. You got to take the highs and the lows, and if you don't do any work, you don't eat. So, Unfortunately, work's starting to dry up, but I'll still be one of the lucky people that will be working even when this eventual lockdown comes, because it's definitely going to come. The government's meeting tonight to discuss it, and we'll know more as early as 9 o'clock tonight on what's going to happen. But this is not a politics show yet. Maybe if our fans want us to come back and talk about all other sorts of life, let us know in the chat, in the comments. Live at the moment on Spreaker or over on Facebook or YouTube. Let us know if you guys want to hear our thoughts on other things, because I'm struggling to find out when we're going to be back to discuss footy. It doesn't look like we're going to have football until maybe May, June. Yeah,
they'll tell us in April if it's going to be extended past the end of May. So on the lighter side, the AFL Evolution 2 comes out in late April. So maybe Gil McLaughlin's just waiting to see how sales of that are going. Keep the fans going. Make us all wait till July. Save a bit of money. Who knows? But yeah, it's looking like being 9-10 weeks minimum, and then we've got 16 games to go, and those 16 games could be really, really packed right in. And I guess we can talk about what happens when a competition looks like that. Is that better or worse for us?
Yeah, you surprised me there, Thom, with your video game knowledge on AFL Evolution 2. It's a shame because you don't have a PlayStation, so I don't think you'll be able to afford one anytime soon either.
My brother-in-law's got about 6 of them sitting in the garage, but I also have an 8-year-old, so if I hooked up the PlayStation, I'd never get any work done. So the temptation's there, though. If there's no work, you bring on the AFL Evolution. I'll probably be stuck on the first version, though, until I get good at it.
Well, you might see, fans might, if they keep up with the Facebook, they'll probably catch me streaming a bit more regularly. I haven't done it for a few weeks. There wasn't getting too much hits, but I'm not going to have much else to do, especially if we end up going into some sort of a lockdown.
Yeah, bring it on. I think maybe our marketing for that was maybe a little abrupt. It sort of happened, and then it didn't happen, and then it happened, and then you had other things to think about. But I reckon with the right kind of Twitter profile and marketing, we can find you a few buddies, because there's certainly plenty of gamers out there who are pretty bummed about their footy season.
Well, Final Fantasy VII, the remake, is just around the corner, so video gamers know what I'm talking about, and that is going to be the game of the year. But we are here to discuss footy, so let's get stuck into it. Before we do, we'd like to thank our Patreon donors, our old soul Patreon donors, Jack Stad, Dale Snelling, Brody Burgess, Kate Kelland, Chris Moore, Paul Vosti, Robbie Fiorini, Tom Kim, and Tim. Thanks for your support, guys, and supporting us through these tough times. We're still waiting to hear back what the club's going to do regarding memberships. With the season suspended, I'm just waiting for that email to come through where they say, all right, we're just going to suspend memberships and not take any more money. I'm actually a bit surprised we haven't had that come through yet.
Yeah, well, we've sort of talked about this off air, but what's just come to me is in the past, the club has sort of said that it's the AFL that directs them in how to price point their memberships and package them and whatnot. So it's probably the AFL who have to give that directive. And so, yeah, I don't know if we can really ask the club to give us any more info on that. And if it is the club, yeah, I don't know how high on their list of priorities it is right now, but yeah, I think a lot of fans would really like to know. So yeah, it's something to really pay attention, and we'll certainly be following that pretty closely. And through Facebook and Twitter, we can certainly let people know what we know when we know it.
Yeah,
but I'd expect that an email would come out for everyone, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you'd think so. Well, we did get a bit of footy this weekend just gone. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great day. I started the day, like most Suns fans, full of hope, full of excitement, full of energy to have football back. And every single quarter, starting with the women's game at around 3:30, I got less and less excited about it. And those following us on Facebook would have seen me posting out little updates and little thoughts and opinions at the end of every quarter, starting with the women's game. But honestly, by the time the first quarter for the Suns men's game was finished, I was fuming, and that was probably not family-friendly content for me to be posting. So I decided to stop the posting there, and it didn't get much better. So let's start with the women's game. The Suns women's played Fremantle, who won 12 goals 8-80, and defeated the Suns 1-4-10, so 70-point shellacking. But it was the Suns women's first final. It was a Gold Coast Suns first final, so there's a small win there, even if it was by default.
Yeah. The final result didn't reflect the game, but it's as Suns fans, we've seen it all before, haven't we? You know, when a team gets humbled, you know, they you can't blame them for falling off tackles, and a team who's on a roll with all that momentum, they're going to score goals. Fremantle was maybe a 60-40 better team. I know that seems like giving us a lot there, but they weren't so much better than us. It was, dare I say it, the umpiring was just really partisan. It was really, even though there was no crowd there, it was just, yeah, they just kept, the girls just kept getting the rub of the green. They weren't getting calls that they should have been getting. The Fremantle team were getting away with things that they shouldn't have been getting away with. There were really damaging free kicks, like a 50-metre penalty for a goal, and a couple of defensive free kicks that ended up in goals in that first half. And, you know, once that happens, the 3 goals in an AFLW game is like 6 goals in the men's game. So the Suns girls did really well just to sort of maintain their belief in that first half, but it's a bit hard to believe in yourself when you keep on getting goals kicked against you and you're trying your best. And they just ran out of steam, didn't they? 4 plane trips, or 7 plane trips. That was their 7th plane trip in 3.5 weeks. They were on a 6-day break. There's all sorts of things. The coach kind of said, "Oh, you know, we don't care about the travel and we don't care about the short break or playing away." Yes, of course he did, but he had to say that. So, yeah, it was all just frustrating for me. I really felt for them. Super proud of them, Shane. And, just without going into minute details about the game, they did better than 80-10, which a lot of people wouldn't have watched it, and then they would have gone, gee, the Gold Coast are crap, aren't they? And it's not true.
Yeah, everything you've said, I pretty much agreed with you. The umpiring was pretty terrible. Fremantle, I mean, nothing to take. The Suns were really good with their contested style of footy. It was a hard, bruising game as well. We saw it again. I spoke last week about some of the Suns girls getting knocked up quite badly. It was happening again in this game, and
very, very physical Fremantle.
And it was definitely the toll of 4 weeks of consistent travel. Going back to Perth twice in the space of a week probably doesn't help as well. So it was definitely a strong performance, I thought, from the girls considering what they'd been through. And they were still able to bring that intensity and that tackle pressure. But what let them down essentially was Fremantle's midfield was too strong. They were too slick. And they were able to use the ball better. Their forwards just finished. They capitalised. The Suns just weren't able to get the ball forward to allow stars like Kalinda Howarth to capitalise and score goals.
Yeah, we should mention at this point, Paige Parker kicked her first goal in AFLW, and things were looking good when she kicked that goal. It looked like we were going to be kicking goals as easily as Fremantle, but that was the end of it, unfortunately. But we do have a few passages to goal. This time next year, we'll be looking at 4 or 5 players who can get in the goals regularly. So it's encouraging to see that each week there seem to be a new player getting their first goal, or like Kindy getting a bag of goals. That these are the firsts every game they play. That they've got their firsts. That you get players who are having their PBs. I think the Suns did quite well in the ruck. For obviously not the first time, but it's little things like that when you're winning things, even if you're losing the game, where lessons are there. Fremantle are brilliant, and you have to really feel for them that they in the future they'll look back at this year and it'll be the asterisks with no winner.
Yeah. All right. And the other thing to mention or give congrats to for our women's side is the Team of the Year is up now on the AFLW website. We have Jade Progelli lining up in the back line. We also have, just going through this team live, so this is all unprepared stuff. We've got Kalinda Howarth on the for the Gold Coast in the forwards as well. And
I mean, she's got to be.
That's it. So, unfortunately, Lauren Bella didn't make it as in the ruck for the Team of the Year. No.
Are they? Hang on a second. Have they already said? Yeah, no. This is it. There's no voting. There's voting for the best and fairest. And it's not really voting. It's a poll to see who you think, but they're going to decide it their way. So this is Jade Progelli and Glenda Howarth named in the best Team of the Year, all Australian team.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty good for the first season of the franchise for the Suns. I don't know enough about these two girls, Kalinda Howarth and Jade Progelli. I know Kalinda was on the Lions side last year, I think it was, or the year before, and she hadn't played.
No. I mean, look, she'd be the first to say. She'd be the first to say that she's had a rough time of things individually, and it affected her footy. So for her to get her life together and she's had a mental health plan that she's had to follow through to get on the footy field, basically, and to get her life in order, and she's done that. And she's kicking goals. You see her on the videos, and she seems like a very self-assured and confident young woman, but she's had a battle to get here. So I think footy's probably played a pretty major part in that. And as far as Jade Progelli's gone, she went off and joined the army and gave up footy because back in only 7 or 8 years ago there was not really a pathway, and she wanted to have a career, and now she's a qualified teacher and has a pretty good position in the army, and to come back from that to play professional women's football is amazing. But not only that, but She's made the All-Australian team in her first season back as a 27-year-old. So the two of them are probably the best two stories, if I'm honest.
Yeah, so good stuff from the Suns girls. Good to see them get out there and really make an impact. I think they surprised a few this season. All right, well, let's move on to the men's game. And it wasn't much better. Port Adelaide defeated the Suns 10 goals, 16-76 to 4 goals, 5-29. A 47-point flogging. Now, it seemed we were all hoping we were going to get the Suns from the Marsh game that was fast, full of pressure, intensity, and great ball movement. We didn't see any of that whatsoever. I think we saw a glimpse maybe in the first couple of minutes, but from that point on, my opinion is Port Adelaide were just too strong, too fast, and too intense, and it completely put the Suns off their game. And I think that then made the Suns go back into their shell a bit and play more on instinct, the way they've been playing the last few years, because that's what we saw on Saturday night. We saw the same Suns side that was playing in round 23 last year, that was getting flogged and wasn't really doing anything. So it was a huge disappointment for Suns fans.
Look, the first half of the first quarter, it was a game, and then we hit the front, and then it didn't take very long for them to come right back at us and get 4 goals straight. But it was at quarter time. It was still looking like it was going to be a game. And then, of course, they kicked the first couple of goals of the second quarter. And you're thinking, okay, this is not on. It's not been our game style in the preseason. Something's wrong. And then, bang, Suns are back in it with a couple of goals to Lemons, which admittedly was a 50-metre penalty, but, you'll take them. And then a brilliant crumbing goal from David Swallow. And it's like, okay, there's 2 goals in it. We've had a bad patch, but now we've had our really good patch. Now it's time to really take the game up to them. And we did, but couldn't really hit the scoreboard. And we're probably lucky that they didn't hit the scoreboard. And then, of course, as is the case usually in late in quarters for us, even though these were shorter quarters, they hit the scoreboard again a couple of times. And going into halftime, 6 goals down, you just thought, this is not going to be a good day for us. And guess what? They only kicked 1 more goal, but we only kicked 1 more goal. So, what can you really say? It's a shortened game, so it's a different style of game. Maybe they would have put 100 points on us if it was a full game. Maybe our fitness was such that if it was a full-length game, we would have come back at them at the end. I just don't know, Shane. It's so many things that I was expecting to see, and I didn't see any of them.
Well, 26 scoring shots to 9 suggests Port Adelaide should have absolutely flogged the Suns. So the Suns were let off lucky with that score. But it still gives them a terrible percentage. I think it's 38.4 or 38.3 going into this hiatus. And it's going to have to... I hope it burns the Suns players. I hope they are looking at this for the next 2 months that they're not playing and letting it burn and sit in their stomachs, because that was disgraceful performance. Every Suns fan starts off the season with hope. This is the time of the year where Suns fans are supposed to really enjoy their footy. And all I can say is by the end of that game, I was just hoping the season was called off, because I couldn't handle any more. I cannot handle another season of football like that from our team.
Let me give you a question without notice. If you had to name a round 2 team to play this weekend, and not asking you to name the 22, but how many omissions would you have? Would it be 5 plus or less than 5?
It'd be less than 5.
I'd be 5 plus.
Okay.
Just because I think our list isn't that bad. isn't that bad as that performance. I think there are guys who have got 50 or 100 games, so sitting in the grandstands watching that thing, just going, bloody let me out there.
Yeah, I may be the optimist in this, but I feel like this was a complete anomaly from what our team is capable of, especially this early in the season. Regardless of the injuries and the players that weren't available, the side that was put out should have been a lot more competitive than what we got. And it wasn't the debutants. It wasn't Raul, Anderson, Buderick that was...
It wasn't their responsibility.
Stuffing up. And it wasn't the new players we'd brought into the side. It was the players aged between 21 and 28 that weren't standing up and delivering for the side. Not all of them. There were some players that were good. I thought Fiorini did a great job considering he was being played out of position.
Yeah.
I thought Bose did a great job.
They've gone with the let's pick the best 22 and then figure out where they play. So he's a victim of that in a way, because you'd expect him to normally get 30 touches, right? So no, he's still done very well, Fiorini, for where he was playing. And you mentioned Buderick.
Yeah, I thought Buderick was great. He only had, I think, 8 disposals for the entire game, but I think our highest disposal getter for the Suns was Brandon Ellis with 21. So that's not too bad in perspective. And I thought he was real class, Buderick, using the ball really well. And he was playing mainly a defensive role in the back 50, but he was shutting down on players like Robbie Gray and... let's be honest, I don't know any other Port players.
Ebert and Robbie Gray were doing a lot of damage, but they were the second half they were tightly held. So, but you had Bose and Buderick were kind of both playing off Gray. Ebert actually got out of quite a bit, but we're not here to really go through the Port performance, other than to say they were obviously there and they executed the game one.
The only thing I'll say about Port's performance was they're a lot better than I took them for, and I believe that they beat the Suns, not that the Suns were beaten. If you know what I'm saying. I feel like Port Adelaide's pressure and intensity right from the start really just threw the game out, and Port were able to play their way for the entire game because of that. And they didn't relent. They kept up the pressure on the Suns. And, looking at the team stats here, Gold Coast... let's do it this way. Port had 61 more disposals than the Suns. 31 more inside 50s.
Which was, if you break that down, it's their kicks and their uncontested disposals that gives them the advantage, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They had 31 more inside 50s. They had 9 more clearances, 31 more marks, 19 more tackles. And the Suns only had 2 tackles inside 50.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be our game plan.
Exactly.
Everything centered around that forward pressure. And we couldn't really say that, Alex Sexton doesn't execute the forward pressure. I wasn't going to do this, but Jared Witts did not have a very good game. His spirit was in it. He was certainly his effort was A grade effort, but he was underdone, and he didn't have a very good combination, and it didn't get much done. And Darcy McPherson, because I wasn't there, and because the commentators didn't really commentate very well, I couldn't say whether he was tagged or not, but I wouldn't be surprised, because that would be the only explanation as to why Darcy's performance was so much different to the last couple of games, where he's just been probably you could say he's been our player of the pre-season has been Darcy McPherson, right?
Yeah, it's very uncharacteristic. Even when Darcy's locking himself down in that forward line, playing the small forward pressure role, he still gets up and down the field, and he's still laying tackles. He's still getting the ball. So for him to have hardly an impact in this game, he was either heavily getting tagged or he was carrying an injury. It seems uncharacteristic for it to be anything else.
Yeah, there's one other theory. I mean, I haven't seen a Suns performance as bad as this in round one since. Remember when Pierce Hanley had his first game and he broke the news to the team just before the game that his brother had just passed away, and the Suns came out and just got demolished. And in the second half, they came good, but they still couldn't win the game against the Lions. Do you think maybe, I'm not saying anything bad like that happened, but do you think maybe as a club, everyone during the day, the preparation was different to normal and they watched the women's game and that they were just deflated by watching us get spanked? Do you think,
I think that's a strong possibility. They would have been keeping an eye on that women's game, surely, whether they watched it or not. But it was certainly long enough. The time frame between their game and the women's game was certainly of a good chunk of time where they would have been able to watch that game. And also, it was a really strange lead up to round one with is the season on, is it off sort of debate going on for not just a week, but probably 2 weeks before that game. So really unusual lead up to it, and that could have really hampered their preparation. But
which would affect the younger players more, wouldn't it?
It would.
Older players would be able to shut things out, and they've done it 100 times or more before.
But it was the older players that didn't stand up, and Stuart Dew went as far as to say that as well in his press conference. He wasn't happy. He's quite measured in his press conference, but I could just tell he was seething underneath, having to deal with that sort of a response. So he's probably going to really make the players pay. Well, he would have. Now, I think, with the delay and the players not being at the club for a couple of months, I think he's going to have time to sit on that, think about it, and just really assess how best to approach it. So, I just
it's
hope
funny though.
The players are going to have to take it on themselves to amend that. I don't think it's going to be coaches that's going to drive that home.
Yeah, no, actually, you're right. I will say though, our oldest player was 28, and the youngest players were 18. So the average age was about 22.
All right.
So very young team. On paper, I said it was the best team we've ever had, but experience-wise, it's still a very inexperienced team. They've all gone home, Shane. They've all, the Rowell and Anderson bloody media train has gone back to Melbourne. It's going to take a lot to get this group back together and really, get them back on board. But maybe a holiday, sitting at home with their folks and thinking about what's most important to them in their lives will have them coming back ready to play footy. I don't know.
All right. Well, what were your thoughts on the duo, the dynamic duo, Rowell and Anderson? I thought Rowell was a bit slow to get going, but he still had his impact. He still got up, I think it was 18 disposals.
19 disposals and quite effective.
So Rowell was quite consistent, I thought, over the night. He slowly got better and it evened out throughout the game. Anderson started like a house on fire. He was all over the place. He was using the ball really well and doing things that some of the blokes that's been at the club for 5 years haven't done. And that was really pleasing to see. But he did seem to tire.
He did.
I've heard reports that he was just out of breath in that second half. And that's probably a bit of a concern, considering he's supposed to be one of our better runners as far as stamina goes. So maybe
I think he outdid things early, and then was catching up to that.
Yeah, so he spent some of the candy, and he just didn't have enough to get home, I guess.
Yeah, and it'll take him quite a while to get there. It's a little surprising that they didn't just bench him, because Port had like 3 players on the bench for the whole final quarter. But I think Anderson had something like 9 touches in the first quarter, and then 1 each quarter after that.
It was interesting because in the Marsh game, they only really played 50% of the game time.
That's right.
So he probably wouldn't have been used to playing that much, even though the quarters were shortened by about 20 minutes for the entire game.
That's exactly right. I think one of the things that the Marsh series does is it allows you to play way more players for way less time than necessary, and because we just dominated those games, putting players on the bench who could have otherwise played out a full game seemed like a good idea at the time. But, get a full game into the kid and give him 2 weeks to recover and see what he can do. But you have to trust them. I think you're absolutely right. Anderson, good early. Rowell really got better and better as the game went on. My each game now, the player that I've been focusing on has been Jack Bowes, because he's playing way out of position. He had 18 disposals, and that to do that off the half back line in a shortened game, that's like having 24 disposals. And if you can get the ball into Jack Bowes' hands 25 times a game, good things will happen. So I'm liking that more and more.
All right, so let's close up this chat with the AFL men's. But before we do, I'd never spoke to you about this before, but are you prepared to do a 3-2-1?
Which is what?
The votes. Our votes that we normally do, yep. All right, so
we should.
I'm going to give my one vote to Brandon Ellis. I thought the 21 disposals, he's come in, this is his debut game as a Sun for premiership points, and he really stood up. He was a leader for the club. Struggled a little bit with some of his disposal, but I thought it was great that he was out there leading the way he was. I've given 2 votes to another new Sun, Hugh Greenwood. Just his class and work rate through that midfield. He was easily one of our best midfielders, and just doing what he had to do. And that goal he kicked was pretty damn good. And number 3 votes for Collins, the extension recruit that we got. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but Collins, he was just great, sweeping up, down, back. Doesn't look like he's missed any footy. He was just really strong, and he's probably the main reason that the scoreline was kept to a minimum.
Okay, so you have put me on the spot here, but I did have a fair idea of where I was going to go with this, and I'll pick up where I just left off. Jack Bowes was really impressive in that defensive capacity. He only took 3 marks in the end, but he did spoil a great deal. He kept the Port forward line under pressure, and I felt that he kept the Suns backline, which is very inexperienced Suns backline, and he was pretty much their leader. And for the 2 votes, Collins, because he was getting in amongst it with spoils and marks and intercepts, and really the 2 of them did a really good job to sort of keep the other guys, at least cohesive enough to keep the scoreline down, because they kicked 1 goal 10 after their sort of flurry in the second quarter. And the best player on the ground, in my view, was Tuke Miller. He had the most possessions. He was right in there. He started off on the ball and getting in there and with Weller, and that's a new combination to look out for, because the 2 of them have got a bit of pace to burn and be able to get that ball out there. I really liked a lot of aspects of his game. And just feel like the future of our midfield includes him, although on paper you could probably make an argument to say that it shouldn't, and we've been sort of saying maybe he should go to the back line, but they've tried a few other guys out down there. So, I look forward to seeing Tuke with this, improved disposal efficiency and continued ability to find the ball and be our leader out there in the midfield. And someone who's unlucky to not get a vote is David Swallow, who has unfortunately got a suspension So I don't know. Do we include suspensions in our end of year best and fairest? Do we disqualify them? And what did you think of the suspension, by the way?
I don't think we've brought suspension into the equation in the last couple of years we've been doing it, so I don't see any point to start now. Yeah, he did a dumb thing. I think what pushed it over was the jump. You know, there was no need to jump into the other player. If he hadn't done that, it would have been all fair play. But players,
I think it was a blind turn, though, wasn't it? Like he just sort of went, put up the arm, and I don't think there was anything malicious in it.
Nothing malicious. 1 week is probably about right. He's lucky. Lucky Westhoff got up and carried on.
I've never seen Westhoff stay down, so that was never going to happen. But I didn't. I thought a fine, but and then I thought the club could, defend it. But I guess it just looks so bad, doesn't it?
It's not a great look for the game.
It happens with this. It's usually the other way around, isn't it? It's usually the tall bloke who doesn't quite judge it right. But I think in this case, you've got bloody Westhoff kind of crouching down, going down into the contact because he doesn't want to get Swallow high, and as a result, Swallow's overcompensated for how high he's got to hit this guy, and the two just didn't connect at all in a good way. Anyway, if it was their player elbowing our player in the head, I would have said give him 6 weeks. So maybe a week's about right.
All right. Well, with that done, we've got a few minutes left, so let's discuss the closure of the AFL. The AFL has suspended all operations until the 31st of May, and they've also cancelled the AFLW season as it was, so at least the Suns women's side were able to play into the last week of football. But it looks like all the players have been sent home. As you suggested earlier, Rowell and Anderson have gone home to their families. I've seen that Sharp has gone back to WA. Pierce Handley has decided to stay in Australia, so he'll be around. And there were unusual scenes. Sorry about that. There were some unusual scenes yesterday of players taking gym equipment home. So
really,
what's going on here is with the club shutting down, the gym's not going to be able to be used due to the current crisis the country is facing, with all gyms around the country shutting down. Players are taking what gym equipment they can home to their homes, so they can continue to work out and exercise.
They are allowed to train in small groups.
Yes,
they are. They don't have to do it all on their own.
They're not allowed to do it at the club, and they're not allowed to do it at the gym.
If Peter Wright's got a big piece of gym equipment in his garage because he's got a big enough garage to fit it, and he's not sticking a car in there, then half a dozen other blokes can go around and do a weight session with him. But I imagine that there'll be some extra conditions.
By the end of the week, Tom, they won't be able to. I guarantee that.
Okay.
So,
I've followed a few other sports, and they do talk about training in small groups together, but
I'm talking more about a national scale. People
like a full lockdown. Yeah.
So what's happened with that? I know that some of the players that have had, let's say, issues with their calves are taking certain exercise equipment home that will allow them to exercise and work out those sections. And so the high performance team has basically handpicked gym equipment to hand to particular players that they feel will help them with their rehabilitation or keeping fit during the season.
Far out. What scenes? I haven't seen those pictures, but
they are floating around online. And I know a few of the players live together, so those players have also been sort of considered whether they're saying, all right, those players can use that equipment. So the club's looking at it from a good point of view of trying to get the equipment to be used.
Do we know if any players live in New South Wales? I know Andrew Swallow does.
Oh, yeah, he lives down in Byron. I'm not aware of any. I can imagine it would be too much to drive.
You're not allowed to from tomorrow unless you've got essential business and the club's been shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an extraordinary thing. And I've got to admit, I've been in denial about it for a few weeks because I didn't want to have to think about what would happen if my school shut down, my work dried up. But the reality of the situation is everyone just has to just lock themselves in. And if you've got to go out for essential things, well, then the fewer people who are out and about, then the less chance that the essential services people will get it. And footy is not essential.
No.
But
supermarkets and pharmacies, they're all essential servos. So you'll still be able to, even if we are in lockdown, we'll still be able to go out and go to get essential groceries and stuff. I will imagine Woolworths and Coles will probably still have those restrictions they've currently got in place so that people don't go and buy all the milk or all the bread or all the toilet paper. I went to the shops today. I couldn't find any bloody cleaning equipment. Everything was sold out.
That's gone.
Not even the vinegar. Gone. I couldn't do the old style bicarbonate vinegar.
Yeah, my neighbours have stockpiled on everything. They got full-on boxes full of everything in their garage, but my garage remote opens their garage door, so might go shopping in the next door neighbour's garage if things get desperate. I don't think they're even going to be there. They're fly in, fly out people. But anyway, only joking. I would never do that. Look, the people need to help each other, and if you run out of something, there's bound to be someone who can help you out. And there are also some old-fashioned methods, and as long as we've got the internet, I think a good bottle of vinegar would be the basis of a lot of old-fashioned cleaning methods. So, we're not all going to be living in stinking hovels just because the cleaning aisle has got nothing in it. And then if you go early in the morning, provided the pensioners haven't pinched everything already, then there's usually some things to get. Also, a bit of a veteran's tip about Centrelink. If anyone has to get in touch with Centrelink, don't go there. I've been a single parent. I've had to be involved with Centrelink for quite a long time, even though I work. But no, the best thing is the computer. And at the moment, the internet, they're doing it via the internet on their website is a bit futile, but it's the best way, it's the safest way to do it, and everyone's going to get looked after eventually. So if you're desperate, don't go down to the local Centrelink. It's just not healthy to be in such big groups.
All right, well, thanks for those tips, Tom. We are almost out of time, so I'd like to thank all of our supporters, everyone that listens to the show, for tuning in. Honestly, we don't know when we're going to be back. It probably depends heavily on when there's football news to talk about. But if you guys want us to come back more regularly still, say every week or every fortnight, let us know in the chat what you guys want us to talk about, because there's not going to be much football to talk about. And we'll see what we can do. As you would have heard a bit from this episode, I know my stuff when it comes to gaming and pop culture and movies. And Tom knows his stuff when it comes to politics and current affairs. So there's always something
and
to go on.
education, don't forget.
And
be
education.
A lot of parents who will be worried about their kids if they have to stay at home for a long time. So yeah, send me a DM on Facebook or Twitter, and happy to answer any questions and give some recommendations about that kind of thing. You might even have teenagers doing their year 12 or whatever. So certainly give some advice on that kind of stuff on what you can do as a parent to help your kids.
All right. Well, until next time, Suns fans, thanks again for listening, and go Suns.
Go Suns.